Thank you very much, David. I think Martin would like to have a word, right?
I just want to come in now because first, I don't have a lot to say, and second, actually, I do need to go really now. Um, to be honest, this whole debate goes over my head because I was basically either still at school or uni, and I wasn't really engaged in this stuff in the kind of early to mid 70s. I didn't get involved really till about 77 at the earliest. Um, so my observations on this are, first of all, um, the questions were you in touch with the relevant national CDA? Answer, no, it had been abolished by the time ours was set up. Second, CDA Act and Labour's COP policy, I didn't even know about it. So, it's all completely over my head. Uh, the final point, as a CDA officer, did you feel you belonged to a wider national movement? Yeah, when I was working for the CDA from 1986 onwards, there was lots of kind of post GLC stuff going on, and Greater London Enterprise Board and Open University COP Research Unit and all of this kind of stuff. I mean, I helped put together with Chris Cornforth some Open University educational materials on worker co-ops, which I've got squirreled away somewhere. I can't really remember where. But I mean, actually, the book that I referred to earlier on largely comes out of that because I was sent all over the country researching different co-ops of different kinds, and I took photographs when I went there. And that's how they happened to end up in that book. But yes, I mean there was quite a strong national ecology, for want of a better term, of co-op development agencies and related groups, Lucas Aerospace and all that, which we talked about a bit earlier, by the mid to late 1980s. And the sort of world of post GLC was pretty lively and pretty interesting. But the earlier stuff, nothing. Yeah, yeah,
Martin, was this it?
that's the one. That's the one. Yeah, well, you've got it. You've got the complete archive, haven't you, John?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was two. There were two volumes, I think, weren't there?
Right. I can't remember.
Three.
But yeah, there you go. That was what I was involved in.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Martin. So I
I think I'm going to
understand.
have to leave you now, but
I
thank you.
understand
It's
you
been
have
very
to go.
interesting. And I will write you a note with some details of the stuff I was talking about, like Sierra and Lucas Aerospace and Robin
Yeah,
Jenkins and all that stuff.
yes, please do. And if you have any also annual reports that you would be able to share in copies and scans,
I'm
I would
sure John's
love
got
to
them.
have it. Well, thank you very much,
Take
Martin.
care. Bye. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Take
Nice to meet
care.
you all.
Bye.
So I can see two hands up. So would Martin or Kate like to have a word now?
I just really wanted to say because I'm expecting somebody to call by any minute now. So if I could just have a quick go. I mean, this national CDA wasn't really seen as relevant in Scotland that I recall at all. The movement was icon, really. There was a political perception. I remember traveling down to, I think it was 1986. There was a brief Co-ops for Labour kind of like organization set up. But we also had networks like the Whole Food wholesale co-ops, and generally there was a very vibrant whole food co-op network in the kind of like mid to late 1980s, which it's worth referring to, both among the wholesalers and also jointly among wholesalers and retailers. And we used to meet, and the more wider one used to meet at Beechwood College, for instance. We had several meetings at Beechwood College in the probably the second half of the 1980s. But I also think it's just worth mentioning that when the winding up of the National CDA was proposed, ICOM actually supported it on the grounds that it was a waste of resources, even though it was a kind of like Tory measure. It was, in a sense, it was an anti-co-op measure, but it wasn't doing anything. It was just diverting. So that was the basis for supporting the winding up, which I think was maybe like about 1989, something like that, when it was finally abolished.
1990. Yeah.
1990. Yeah.
1990.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I just want to put that in just in case I'm called away suddenly.
Yeah, thank you very much. So from what I understand, so even in Scotland, that was more ICOM, which was seen as the national movement for helping co-ops develop, right? Even in Scotland, that was ICOM.
Can I just? I'd like to just say something about that. I know what others here think about that, particularly, I don't know, Alex and Kate, which is the tension within ICOM between the worker co-op and the CDAs.
Yep.
It was an uncomfortable relationship for all sorts of reasons that I don't think has ever been really acknowledged publicly. There were all sorts of tensions because it was owned by the worker co-ops. There were feelings of resentment against the CDAs and co-op development workers. I'm not sure where the wellspring from that came from. At the local level, I can tell you partly what it was wage levels. That people in worker co-ops were paid rather poorly, and people in CDAs were paid rather well. And that certainly produced a lot of tensions at the local level. But I don't know whether that was true at the national level or not, or what. I don't know what Martin, Alex, Kate, who were around at the time. Well, what would you? And at one point, we broke away. The CDAs broke away and set up a separate national network, which I still have got a ring binder of sundry paperwork from, the National Network of Local CDAs. And we employed Jerry Spencer to
I
run
remember
it.
Jerry.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to talk to him. I don't know where he is, but what's your take on that? Other people here.
Kate's got her hand up.
Yeah, I would. Yes, I've been going to mention the National Cooperative Development Network, which was really I thought was very, very effective, and I remember those discussions, those arguments about the wage levels. But I remember somebody I think it might have been Malcolm Corbett pointing out that actually in a worker cooperative, although you weren't earning so much money, your situation was probably more secure than it was in the CDAs, which were kind of rapidly starting to disappear at that point. But I think the National Cooperative Development Network was powerful and influential, and that there was also a Black National Cooperative Development Network, which again was extremely influential and used to hold conferences and meetings. And in those days there were, which they're no longer, very many Black and Asian and mixed race cooperative development workers all over the UK, which we don't see any longer, which John knows that I feel very strongly about.
There was also Icon Women's Link Up.
And exactly, yes. We ran, well, I don't want to go into too much into what we were doing, but we ran a training course to train women cooperators to move into management positions in their cooperatives, and that was funded. ICOM stands for Industrial Common Ownership Movement, which was quite a mouthful for people to get their heads around. But it had been set up in the 1970s and was very powerful and influential, and did some really useful work, I think.
But Icon Women's Link Up also trained women CDA workers, many of whom are still around and involved in various ways.
Is that? I don't remember that. Yeah.
I think possibly the other tension might have been because CDA workers, by their very nature, had more flexibility in time to get involved in ICOM at a national level and ICOM affairs, whereas people in worker co-ops generally found it difficult to get away from the workplace and find that time and be able to justify it to their co-ops.
Yeah, exactly. The CDA workers were paid to go to meetings. Probably cooperative members weren't.
It was very difficult to get worker co-op members in particular involved in anything in our CDA. The only solution I had was I started organising the meetings at lunchtime and provided lunch. And it did mean they could fit it into their working day more easily. But otherwise, they're too busy, and at 5:30 at night, frankly, they want to go to the pub. They don't want to go to another meeting. They've been working hard all day. The other difficulty I've got in answering some of this is that we had a big falling out in my printing co-op. We had a big falling out with ICOM. We joined, and the first communication that we had from them was 1 year later when they sent us a renewal notice. And I did say that, the newsletters would have been nice, an invite to the AGM and a vote would have been nice, but we'd be quite happy to renew, but we didn't think we ought to pay for another year. We thought we ought to get a year free. And I got a very nicely worded letter that came back, but I think we just parted our ways then. So my engagement has only been with them through the network of CDBs, and then, as John has said, the separate network of CDBs, or CDAs as we call them then.
I think there was a financial dimension to this, that the worker co-op subs were outweighed the CDA subs. And then I can remember at the time thinking, yes, but quite a lot of the subs that the new worker co-ops are sending to ICOM have actually come from the CDA's funds, because we all had funds to give small grants. And the legal stuff, the setup, that's right, the legal services side of ICOM, which everybody used to set up the legal entity for a co-op, most of the fees came from the CDAs, because we had a budget to pay for the registration of co-ops. So it was our money in the CDAs, but as far as ICOM were concerned, it was coming from co-ops.
It was also quite expensive, ICOM.
Oh yeah, it cost £400 or something in,
Yeah,
which is probably like a couple of grand these days or whatever. But there was like a pretense or a delusion that this was all co-ops paying, and it wasn't. It was CDAs paying. So there were all sorts of rather petty. But whether that's a cause or just a symptom, I don't really know. What was going on?
Yes, Kate.
François, I'm afraid I have to go now, but I'll send this document which I've
All right.
written. Shall I send that to David Smith?
Oh, that's a problem.
Send it to François. Okay.
Oh, yeah, directly to me. Yeah, sure.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Thank you,
Yeah.
Kate, for joining
Okay.
and for offering your help and sharing all these documents.
My pleasure.
very,
I'm
very
sorry I made that
cool.
mistake at the start. Good to chat with you all, and it's very interesting listening to you. Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Right.
Right. So, are there any other reactions regarding the fifth part of the outline of the questions about local CDAs and their links with the wider movement, or did we cover this entirely?
Well, one thing we maybe haven't covered, we don't need to dwell on, is there are also international connections, mostly through the European projects that ICOM led. So,
do you have examples, John? Can you name a few?
well, there was all the CCOP connections, because CCOP, I can't remember all the details about how it was organized. Some of the projects were run from Brussels, weren't they? And we used to go to Brussels quite a lot for meetings. And then did we move on to a stage where you had direct relations with co-ops and co-op development bodies in other European countries? I remember going to Genoa for partners meetings. The transnational projects always had partners meetings where all the transnational partners got together. And we were all co-op developers of one sort or another. Does that ring a bell? I'm sure others, Alex, Martin.
I mean, the thing I remember is, there were ES projects funded by the European Social Fund.
Yes, they're all ESF projects. Yeah.
So I know there was a kind of like whole food one and a bakery one, and then we joined forces at the end and sent a delegation to visit Mondragon, which was extremely eye-opening for all those concerned. Yeah, so there was that training application and support application for co-ops through ICOM as well. And also I was going to mention in Scotland, we actually, because we had a nucleus of about 6 or 8 whole food and whole food related co-ops, cafes, shops, wholesalers and so on. We actually had something called the Scottish Whole Food Collective, and we would meet once a month to talk about potential development.
Yeah, there were other trade bodies. There was the ARB, the Association of Radical Booksellers, and then the Federation. It became the Federation of Alternative Bookshops, and about half of them were co-ops. And I know about that because I was in that, and we're doing a separate history project around history of radical bookselling. So it was about 50% co-ops.
Yes, David. Thank you, John and Martin.
I'm not sure whether it's appropriate for us to actually speculate about what your conclusions might be. for your thesis, François. But I think the issue of a basic lack of understanding or misunderstanding of what cooperatives are about has been with us for decades, and we've never seemed to got to grips with that issue. Traditionally, I mean, retail societies had education departments, and the divvy in part was used to support not just cultural but also political and educational activity. And with margins getting ever tighter and societies growing bigger, retail societies, that connection with locality and localism has almost disappeared. I mean, it does happen in certain parts of the UK, but by and large, it's been lost. That we were unable to actually capitalize on, if you like, what we've been describing with this sort of renaissance in the 70s and 1980s. It means, I think, now that we've only left with considering the role of the national curriculum in the way in which the state takes responsibility through the education system for explaining, if you like, the origins of the cooperative movement as part of humanity's social history. But also there's sort of an enterprise dimension of that could be addressed within the Welsh Baccalaureate, for example. So I'm just sort of interested in teasing out what sort of conclusions there might be in terms of what could be drawn from your thesis, which might play into that agenda. It's a rhetorical question. It's okay.
Yeah, because I'm still working out well the conclusions of my thesis. But I definitely hope these exchanges with you will help me come to satisfying conclusions, and will help us. Yes, John.
I wonder if you've thought about doing some kind of a presentation at Co-op Congress or Society of Co-op Studies Conference, where you might want to share your, as it were, preliminary conclusions, like a consultation session, or other thoughts you've had about the process by which you wrap up this work and present it to the world.
I haven't thought of any participation in Cooperative Congress, but if there's any, I'd be glad to know, and I would like to be informed about them. I have already published a few papers or book chapters, not directly related to my thesis, but one of them is actually. I'm thinking about traveling to England maybe in August to participate in I think it's a forum which is held in London about employee ownership. So something which I understand is quite different from workers' cooperatives. But there was one thing I was thinking of. And
Sorry, can I just say I've got to go now. So thanks very much. It's been very interesting.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much for joining us and for your participation.
Bye, Martin.
I appreciate it. Take care. Bye. So David is offering to introduce me to the CUK chair. You mean Cooperative UK, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, definitely. So are there any events that are planned for coming months or years? I mean, were you thinking of something special, John, or?
Well, no, I was thinking about existing events that you could piggyback on and participate in, such as Congress and the Society of Co-op Studies annual conference. I'm not sure I know about this EOA employee ownership forum, but those sort of things. I mean, another approach would be something special. I don't know. It's been quite interesting that it's been quite easy to get people to participate in these sessions that we're having. There seems to be a lot of interest. You know, people we've had here today seem to be interested, and I suspect there are others as well who you haven't participated today or last time who might be interested. And I'm pleasantly surprised because I'm interested in this history, but I thought maybe there weren't many of us who were. It seems I was wrong, and in fact there is still an interest, and it's probably reinforced or legitimised by the fact we've got co-op development back on the agenda thanks to another Labour government. So it could be that it would be viable to run a special event on this topic, but that's a bit of a risk. Whereas having a workshop at another existing event is less of a risk.
Yes,
Yes,
I
I
wasn't
agree.
aware of. Yes, sorry.
I just saying I agree with John. It's a big risk to run your own event, but to go to other people's events and run a workshop there is a really good thing to do.
And it's easier because you don't have to do the marketing really. Someone else gets the people there, don't they?
But I think you do need to remember that the employee ownership movement in the UK is very much focused on employee ownership trusts, where the democracy is removed to a group of outsiders. And as a result, the relationships between the two movements, the worker co-op movement and the employee ownership movement, aren't that great. And I think also the tax advantages that employee ownership gets puts a lot of jealousy into the worker co-op movement, who see that as an unfair upsetting of the playing field. And although that isn't really the fault of the employee ownership organisations, you know, they lobbied for and got it, and the worker co-op movement didn't lobby for and didn't get the same tax advantages. It's not their fault. They've got something good, but we should just try and match it rather than get nasty.
Yes, I've always thought it was. I've always been in favour of collaboration between Co-op and EOA. I think there's enough common ground to warrant it, to justify it, and to make it in both parties' interests. But it's never really got far. I mean, it is all a bit crazy because Co-ops UK includes all the employee-owned businesses in its annual report, in its annual Co-op economy survey.
An employee ownership association is a member of Co-ops UK.
Yeah. So this continued lack of collaboration is annoying and self-defeating, and it has improved a bit. There is at least one current project that we're involved in, which is jointly run by Co-ops UK and Employee Ownership Association.
And in terms of Principle 6, the employee ownership organisations have always funded the employee ownership organisation. So they put Principle 6 into practice in a way that the co-op societies don't.
Yep.
And it's not their principle. It's not in their fundamental, sort of governance requirements, but they do it anyway.